The 2022 NFL quarterback draft is already over. Every quarterback taken in that draft is either a backup, out the league, or fighting just to stay on a roster except one. And that alone should tell you everything. 9 quarterbacks were drafted in 2022, only 1 was taken in the first round, 0 were taken in the second round, and front offices knew this class wasn't special. Scouts called it thin, executives admitted that there were no franchise guys, and teams openly said that they didn't see difference makers at the position. And instead of forcing quarterbacks up the board like they usually do, they just let the draft come to them. But hesitation didn't stop teams from trying anyway. Because even when the NFL knows a quarterback class is weak, desperation still creeps in. Someone always bets they'll find the chosen one. But now, these quarterbacks are backups, practice squad players, emergency starters, and in some cases, players who aren't even in the league anymore. So to kick it off, we got Kenny Pickett. He was the NFL's lone first-round quarterback in 2022. The Pittsburgh Steelers selected him 20th overall, making him the only quarterback the league was willing to fully commit to. At 24 years old, Pickett was older than most rookies. Coming off 5 years in college and a breakout senior season, the pitch was simple. He was supposed to be safe and ready to play right away. Pickett appeared in 25 games across 2 seasons in Pittsburgh, and in that span he threw for just over 4,000 yards with 13 touchdowns and 13 picks, completing roughly 62% of his passes. For most of the time Pickett was there, the Steelers' passing offense was among the least explosive in football. And the thing is, Pickett wasn't just thrown into chaos. He played behind a competent offensive line, had a decent run game, and benefited from one of the NFL's better defenses, keeping games close. And despite that, he struggled to process pressure, hesitated on reads, and rarely pushed the ball downfield. Big moments didn't produce big plays, and the timeline tells the real story. By the end of his second season, Pittsburgh was already rotating quarterbacks and exploring alternatives. The organization moved on quickly because it became clear what Pickett was and wasn't. He was just a quarterback who could survive games, but he wasn't that type of quarterback who could elevate the offense. After leaving the Steelers, Pickett became a career backup. He had a 1-year backup stint with the Eagles, and now he has a backup role with the Raiders. And once the first round ended, teams stopped pretending that they were drafting answers. Round 3 is where the league took its shots. Not because these quarterbacks were franchise caliber prospects, but because desperation convinces teams that upside is enough. So with that being said, the Falcons drafted Desmond Ridder. He was drafted in the 3rd round, and they believed they found a steady athletic quarterback who could grow into a role. They gave him the opportunity late in his rookie season, and he played in 4 games in 2022 and didn't throw a single touchdown until his final game. Ridder played in 19 games across the 2022 and the 2023 seasons, and over that stretch, he threw for just over 3,500 yards, 14 touchdowns, and 12 picks. The production was uneven, but the bigger issue was control and turnovers, and Atlanta didn't hesitate for a single second to move on. The experiment ended quickly and Desmond slid into a backup role, not because of an injury, but because the team lost confidence. He was then shipped off to Las Vegas to become a backup. This lasted 1 season, and now he's on the Vikings practice squad. His starter window lasted less than a season and a half. And on to Malik Willis. He was one of the ultimate projection picks. In the 3rd round, Tennessee drafted him for his arm strength, his mobility, and the belief that raw tools could be refined with time. But when he was forced into action early, the gap between traits and readiness was pretty obvious. Willis started 3 games as a rookie, and across those starts, he threw for 234 passing yards, 0 passing touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. Willis looked pretty awful in his limited starts his rookie year, but at the same time, who doesn't look terrible at times when you're playing quarterback for the Titans? Defenses didn't respect the pass, the offense shrank, and Tennessee knew immediately this wasn't a long-term option. Willis lost the backup job not long after, and his startup window effectively ended the moment it began. He's now a backup for the Packers, and it seems like this system fits him a lot better, likely due to better coaching.
I mean, more than anything in Tennessee, I kind of got thrown in the fire. I wouldn't say I was ready yet. I hadn't seen him much. My first time being under center every single play almost.
What would your pitch be to a team that's thinking about giving you that shot?
I think that what you put on tape is your pitch.
And now we got Matt Corral. Matt Corral's NFL career barely started at all. The Carolina Panthers drafted him in the 3rd round, hoping his quick release and college production could translate. Instead, injuries and roster turnover erased his opportunity before it even started. Corral never started a single regular season NFL game. He missed his whole rookie season due to injury and failed to gain traction afterward. He was released before ever establishing a role, and today he's not on an active NFL roster. He actually found himself playing in the UFL for the Birmingham Stallions, and his starter window never even opened. So here's the verdict on round 3. This is where the draft truly collapsed. Ritter was given time and couldn't hold the job. Willis was given opportunity and looked overwhelmed. And Corral never even reached the starting lineup. 3 quarterbacks drafted within the same round, combined at around 20 starts, and they almost all came from one player. By the end of year 2, teams already knew what they had and it wasn't enough. By the time the draft reached the middle rounds, teams weren't looking for franchise quarterbacks anymore. They were just trying to find value and maybe a future backup that they could live with, and in some cases a lottery ticket they hoped could outperform expectations. What they found instead was more proof of how shallow this class really was. Sam Howell entered the league with one of the more intriguing resumes in the class. A former highly rated college recruit, strong arm and solid college production, Washington believed he could develop quietly behind the scenes. Howell started one game his rookie season, which was a 26-6 win against the Cowboys, but in his sophomore season, Howell started 17 games in 2023. He had a season reminiscent of Jameis Winston's 30-for-30 season. He threw for 21 touchdowns and 21 picks, along with 3,946 passing yards. He took an alarming number of sacks, struggled under pressure, and as the season wore on, turnovers were just a big problem. After a full season of this, Washington seen enough, and they didn't hesitate to reset the position again. His starter window lasted just one season, and today Howell's a career backup. He spent one season as a backup in Seattle, and he's now the 3rd string for the Eagles. And that moves us on to Bailey Zappe. Drafted in the 4th round by New England, Zappe was never expected to start early, but injuries and instability forced him onto the field sooner than planned. Zappe had a crazy final year in college. Coming out of Western Kentucky, he threw for 5,967 yards, 62 passing touchdowns, and 11 picks. Despite this production, scouts weren't fooled. He was projected to go in the 6th round and was projected to be a candidate for the bottom of the roster or just a practice squad player. A month into his rookie season, he appeared in 4 games throwing for 781 yards, 5 touchdowns, 3 picks, and a 70% completion rate. The year after this, he appeared in 10 games. He threw for 1,272 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 9 picks with a 60% completion rate. The Patriots cycled quarterbacks constantly during this stretch, and Zappe never seized control of the job. He wasn't bad enough to be cut immediately, but he was never good enough to trust. His starter window lasted less than half a season, spread out over multiple years. He's now on the Browns practice squad, and he settled into what teams quietly hoped he'd be all along, just a backup. And now we got Skylar Thompson. Thompson was drafted as a depth piece. Miami never intended for him to start meaningful games, but injuries forced him into action earlier than expected. Thompson started 3 games, including a playoff appearance, and in the playoff outing on January 15, 2023, Thompson went 18 for 45 for 220 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 picks. Despite this awful stat line, they only wound up losing 34-31 to the Bills. The results were definitely predictable though. Limited arm strength, conservative play calling, and an offense that shrank whenever he was under center. Miami protected him as much as possible, but the ceiling was obvious. His starter window was temporary and situational, never developmental. So today, Thompson exists as the 4th string on the Steelers. Drafted in the 7th round by the Pittsburgh Steelers, Chris Oladakun's NFL career barely registered. Just a disclaimer, this was made before Pat Mahomes got hurt and Chris Oladokun was called up from the practice squad. He went 13 for 22 for 66 yards against the Broncos with 1 touchdown, and they only lost by 7 points. For a practice squad player, he didn't look awful, but it wasn't good either. He never started a game, he never carved out a role, and he bounced between rosters and practice squads. His starter window never even existed. He's now on the Chiefs practice squad, and that's all I can say about him. And now here's the verdict on the mid-round QBs. They were auditions. Howell got a full season and collapsed. Bailey Zappe floated in and out without ever taking control. Thompson was never trusted, and Chris never even entered the conversation. Different rounds, different teams, same results. By the middle of the draft, there wasn't a single good quarterback in sight. And then with the very last pick in the entire draft, the one quarterback nobody believed in changed the entire story. They called this pick Mr. Irrelevant. He was projected to be an undrafted free agent. There wasn't much info on him coming into the draft, and he was just supposed to be an afterthought. The San Francisco 49ers took a chance on him as a developmental prospect, a player with high football IQ but little expectation to start immediately. That changed quickly because Jimmy G got hurt, which pulled Purdy into the starting spot, and he seized the opportunity. And he led the 49ers to an undefeated record in those starts and quickly earned the trust of his coaching staff. He went on to play the Seahawks in the first round of the playoffs, throwing for 332 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 picks, and a 41-23 dub. This did squeak out with a 19-12 win. This run was ended in a 31-7 blowout by the Eagles in the NFC Championship. Purdy was hurt early on, and the backup Josh Johnson was awful. Then he got hurt, which led to an easy win for the Eagles. But by his second season, he established himself as the team's clear starter, appearing in all 16 regular season games, throwing for 4,280 yards with 31 touchdowns and 11 interceptions. Purdy's success just highlights the failure of the rest of the class. While first round and mid-round quarterbacks struggled to hold jobs, Purdy went from the last pick to a legitimate starter, capable of managing a top-tier offense. This would turn into an even more shocking story when the 49ers team went 12-5 in 2023, leading to Purdy's first Super Bowl appearance as a player drafted in the 7th round. This game was against the Chiefs and it went to overtime. Purdy made some great throws on his first overtime drive, but it stalled after Chris Jones came in unblocked, causing Purdy to miss a wide-open Ayuk in the end zone. This forced the 49ers to take 3 points, ultimately giving Mahomes the ball back for a game-winning Super Bowl drive. But even after this loss, the 49ers and Brock Purdy then reached a 5-year, $265 million contract extension in May 2025. This locked him up as their franchise QB. 9 quarterbacks were selected, 1 first-round pick, 0 second-round picks, and just a few years later, nearly the entire class is either a backup, on a practice squad, or out of the league entirely. Brock Purdy stands alone as the exception. The last pick turned out to be a legitimate starter. Everyone else from Kenny Pickett to Sam Howell to Malik Willis to Bailey Zapp failed to secure a long-term role. Starter windows closed almost as soon as they opened, and teams moved on without hesitation. And that's it. I hope you guys enjoy it. Subscribe if you're new, and comment what I should cover next.